This is a film dimension conversation I am having with Ricky Glore. He is a stand-up comedian, filmmaker. Ricky, how are you?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you so much, Tom, for having me back to discuss all things forthcoming.
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna definitely get on and talk about lots and lots of things. Your latest project, your project before that, which we spoke to you about a year and a half ago, something like that, on a film dimension, and it was really cool speaking to you then. It's brilliant to have you back and talking to you now about your latest project. Again, for anyone who's just stumbled across this, um, who are you? What do you do? And in terms of filmmaking, what sort of films do you make?
Yeah, this will be what we're talking about today is the upcoming project that we're currently crowdfunding in the United States called Open House, which it is a horror dark comedy musical. And what I do as a filmmaker, whether it be my short films, my comedy, or even my first film, All Your Friends Are Dead, is I like to blend a few different genres that I feel elicit a visceral reaction, whether it be good or bad, from the audience member. And I feel like music, comedy, and horror are all three things that we can connect to emotionally in some of the deepest ways. That if you can blend a milkshake of those or a smoothie of those three components together, man, I think there's nothing more fun than a fun house or a haunted house where you're laughing, you're screaming, you're caught off guard, and the music and the pageantry. I think that is the most fun way of entertainment. I love vaudevillian comedy. So if you can be a Renaissance performer and really do those well tonally and mix them up, I think the audience will be watching something. And if my film partner Nick Hyance of NKY Films, he's like, can't we write a comedy? He's like, can't we just make a comedy? Does it have to be horror? Because horror, you have special effects, you have a lot more moving pieces. He's like, can we make just like a romantic comedy? And I was like, no, I don't think I'm funny enough to make a straight down the line comedy. But if I make something that's horror or even with some music and some comedy, I was like, the comedy isn't the main focus. So it doesn't have to be so precious of like, it has to be the funniest thing.
Yeah,
But if it's horrific and then there's a little bit of comedy, maybe that comedy will pop even more. Or even during the comedy, if it starts getting a little dark or a little weird, I think that'll heighten that horror. And so that's what I want to do. I think with my filmmaker hat is to make these not inaccessible or unaccessible quirky movies, but these movies that kind of are fun and have their hand in a couple of different pots, but hopefully tonally mix them well, like De Palma's Phantom of the Paradise. Not
mm,
saying that that's what this open house will be, but like when I'm trying to condense the pitch of the movie down and use some comparisons, I say, well, it's the Texas Chainsaw Massacre meets Waiting for Guffman, or
mm.
it's the Texas Chainsaw Massacre meets Rocky Horror Picture Show. Now, the difference is the musical aspect of Open House. The music is diegetic, which means they perform the songs like Phantom of the Paradise. They're being performed. It's not, they don't break out into song within the movie because that's how their character speaks. It's not like Grease. But
Sure.
yeah, th- that's what I'm drawn to. And one of the things we found out with All Your Friends Are Dead, we had a balancing act of it being dealing with depression and suicide and addiction. Well, we knew we had humoristic moments in it, but I don't, and we wanted to make sure that we weren't mocking anybody with depression or
Cool.
suicidal
Yeah.
thoughts. So we wanted the humor to come earnestly. The best thing that came of being part of the viewings, the screenings with audiences that we didn't know anybody in the audience, is that the first screening we had with a public, they laughed at a lot of spots that we weren't expecting laughter. And it wasn't like they were laughing at us, they were laughing with it for like the right reasons, and it felt really good. And we were like, oh yeah, I guess that is funny. We didn't really think of that as being like as funny as it's coming off. I was like, so that's good. And we are like, oh, but this is the first screening. Let's see what the next screening's like. And then the next time the audience laughed at the exact same moments. So we're like, oh, okay, well, I guess we got something right. And then they would cringe at the horror stuff, they recoil and they'd be like, oh, once it starts getting into the blood stuff later. And so Nick and I, we were like, man, that's what we want to do. We want to make the audience laugh, and then we want to like roller coaster them to then also make them be like, oh, or like build suspense.
Yeah, because like you said about that you wanted to do that in this kind of like a three-way sort of thing. It's got the musical, it's got the horror element, but also the comedy. You're right, because even if one of them is not quite hitting, they've still got
Mhm.
the comedy thing. They're laughing even if they're not into horror films, and maybe like the gorier bits are a little bit not up their sort of street or their comfort zone. At least they're finding it funny. So they're going, I'll see that again. I'll tell my friend about it, and they can kind of
Or they
handle
leave and they're like, oh, I just saw the funniest movie.
it. Exactly,
And they
because
don't
if
even pitch
it's
it. They
scary,
they are doing the work for you.
yeah,
Yeah. Or it's like,
yeah,
oh, I just saw this great musical. And it's
yeah,
like that, and they're like, okay. But that's, I mean, I'm being honest right now when I say in the world of where you think about it as a producer, because we're also very, I'm not even going to use indie movie, we're micro budget,
yeah.
for our goal being $15,000. I mean, that's nothing, but as you said before we started this recording, when you don't have it, it's a lot. Um, as far as I'll pivot for a hot second, Kickstarter, what I love is we're not asking for donations. We're asking for you to become a producer of the movie. And with the perks, if you pick buying the movie or if you pick being a producer on it, you are making the movie happen. You are producing the movie by contributing
That's cool.
and giving money for it. So I don't think of it as like a handout or whatever. You are actually on the ground floor level of making this movie happen. But in the world of branding and marketing, I do have that thought and a slight concern of horror heads looking at this and being like, yeah, I love Texas Chainsaw and I want horror and I want gore, but musical, man, I don't like. That's for girl, or whatever the sentiment is. I hope that you will go in with an open eye and be intrigued by the interesting tones that we're playing with, and there is something for everyone, even though we're not trying to placate. But I hope the musical part of it, or even the dark comedy part of it, doesn't turn off a horror fan, because there's some brutality in this too, and going to be some great special effects. But
I
for me, the horror of it is these lead realtor characters who are insane.
Sure, sure. We can get onto that in a sec because I'm finding all of this fascinating. Certainly, a bit about the crowdfunding and becoming a producer as well, which we'll go into delve into. But it's just literally as you're saying this, it makes perfect sense to me. But for sort of two reasons, and both are kind of perhaps a little bit out there in terms of my examples. But I'm thinking, well, one is a film that I grew up loving as a kid and still do now, and I still meet people as adults who love it. Is Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah.
You know, that is as a musical. It's kind of a horror. It's definitely a comedy. It's so unique and so different that people remember that from say 40 years ago. And the other one, I'm thinking again, maybe it's my age or like our kind of age and that sort of generation. But again, Michael Jackson's Thriller video.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like these are things that stand out because they're not seen 1,000 times. They're not reproduced every week and every year.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, Frank Oz is such a visionary, obviously his association with Jim Henson, but he did Little Shop of Horrors, which, is the musical version of the Roger Corman 60s horror film.
yeah,
And he also did the remake of Stepford Wives. So he tonally deals with light and dark quite a bit. Your other mentioned Thriller. Again, you mentioned two properties that have people at the helm. I mean, Michael Jackson's at the helm of Thriller, but John Landis, who
Yeah,
you have American Werewolf in London.
which is a funny horror film.
Yeah, and it's dark. And so like
Absolutely.
those are the kind of like that approach. And there's that love for American Werewolf in London, which is brutal and obviously some of the best special effects.
Yeah,
And it's humor and it's weird. That's where I want people for their mind to go if they have any kind of knee jerk. And it's like, are you seeing things that are indicative of that in the horror culture right now? And I not saying that we're like breaking ground, but I think there's a place for fun horror.
yeah,
And and I don't have to be disparaging against any other properties, but I don't think all of the fun horror has to go at the cost of brutality or aggression towards, like, say, women or something like some horror movies do.
yeah.
That I think there is fun horror in the sense of even like 80s like Friday the 13th. That was fun in its own way because the demographics of the kids buying movie tickets put themselves on the screen. They're like, oh, I'm Kevin Bacon and I want to go to a summer camp where I'm a counselor and I want to have sex with her, like this date that I just brought. And then the horror happens and they're like, oh man, oh, that's scary because I just related myself to being him. So that was fun. And it wasn't over the top messagey, which again, subtextual horror or quote unquote elevated horror, everything has its place and they should all coexist. I just feel like I haven't seen a fun horror movie that tonally is maybe dealing with some like David Lynchian vibes
Mhm.
that I think we're trying to lean into with this. That's why I mentioned Waiting for Guffman. There's the awkwardness of how weird and delusional those characters are in those Christopher Guest mockumentary movies. That's what the humor and the relatability is, that I think you're going to see characters in Open House that seem larger than life, but then you're going to think about people in your community and you're going to be like, oh, that's just a crazy version of that person that I know who does
Yeah.
community theater and who is a realtor by day, but starring in South Pacific at our local community theater or Phantom of the Opera by night. And that's where this comes from. Is I met my wife Allie in Chicago, and she's an actress and a musical theater actress, and she became my muse, where I started writing and producing and directing original storefront black box musical theater, and I'd always cast her in the plays because I just felt like she could do anything. I felt she was enigmatic and energetic and charismatic. And I was just like, oh, people got to see her talent.
Mhm.
And that's what Open House, that's where Open House comes from. So All Your Friends Are Dead is semi-autobiographical of an alternate universe of maybe what I would have become
Sure.
if I hadn't have gotten into theater. That's what Open House is. It's about two different relationships. Mark and Missy First, who are a realty couple in this small town, who are the biggest realty couple. And they produce these original local commercials that are bonkers. And Mark loves Missy so much that she's burnt the bridges in her community theater, but he thinks she's a star. So he writes and directs her own musical theater productions as for her as the star. And he writes the music and he directs her. But the only way to get her an audience is to capture people, kidnap them, and lock them in their basement while they workshop these original musicals. And they also happen to eat the people once they become unruly audience members.
Of course, right. But that's only several movements along from reality. It is said in terms of it. Literally, you could have a small town somewhere where the influential guy, the guy who's got a bit of money, whatever, is in charge of the theater, thinks his wife is an amazing actress when maybe she's not, and he's put a load of money into this production and almost like forcing people, oh, you've got to come to this networking event or inviting people to come and watch his wife, and she might be awful, whatever. It's like that's only several steps away from kind of like probably what's happened 100
And
times.
it's not like, yes, yeah, it's a tale is, I mean, that's, I think there is nothing new of our concerns of fear as far as anything goes. I think blanketed, I think everyone's just like, oh, it's not how it used to be, like things are worse or whatever. I was like, oh, I think things are probably pretty much the same, just we know about things more,
Sure.
they're reported more. um it is, yeah, it's like this this guy is going to do whatever he has to do to make his wife's dreams come true. He loves her so much. So the other couple is this mother and daughter, this mother and her teenage daughter, who are homeless, who are her mother will do whatever she can, even though they're homeless, to give a roof over her head. So they divide, they're kind of grifters as they go from town to town, and they set up realty open house showing some with realtors, where when they're being shown the house, while they're there, they unlock different windows and doors, so they then can return later at night, climb in, and sleep in a house with a roof over their heads. So that relationship is, the mother will give whatever she can in her power to her daughter, even though their circumstances are what they are. So then these two groups, their paths cross, and that's where you get the story that of them being kidnapped eventually in this torture basement of bad original musical theater.
See, I love it. That the way you just described that, I want to see this film. Do you know what I mean? It's so more refreshing compared to what is being churned out at the moment. It is original, as I said, even though it's a story that's probably quite old in various different forms. But it's got my attention, and how you just described it, I'm like, yeah, damn, I wanna watch this. And the fact that you're doing this on a micro budget, you want $15,000. I mean, you want to explain a little bit about what you said earlier about that you're not asking just for random strangers to give you money to make your dream, that they literally can become producers, and by giving donations or investments, if you like. Do you want to go into that a
Yeah,
little bit?
I I think what worked for us for All Your Friends Are Dead, is similarly for this. We're not offering any perks that can't be fulfilled. A lot of people do have worries of just like, oh, I might give to this thing and I'll never see the light of day, or blah 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 blah. So like for us, when if you watch the video, or if you hear the idea and you're like, I want to see that movie being made, I'm tired of all these superhero movies, or I'm tired of just maybe this very small sect of horror movies that are being made that aren't fully just exploring what I think there is in horror. That's you can help produce this movie. Your contribution produces it. It's not a handout, it's not a GoFundMe, it's not or even Indiegogo, which those are fine. But for us, we think of everybody that contributes to it as a producer. Now, some of the perks we do offer are for a little higher tier, associate producer and producer. And that means your name gets put on IMDb with the movie. Like, you are a legit producer of the movie. And when posters are made for the movie, and when the Blu-ray is made for the movie, your name is in the credits of the film, and on those posters and on those DVDs. Like, let me grab, because I think I have it right here.
Sure, sure.
Um, this is the All Your Friends Are Dead Blu-ray, which I don't know if I can. Yeah, I can't hardly see it because it's all blurred out.
Yeah,
Yeah. So anyway, at the back of the box is a list of the credits. And
yeah,
so it says associate produced by Eric Edwards, Stephanie Grashel, Brett Patton, and Glenn Schley. Those are people that picked that option
sure.
for Kickstarter for All Your Friends Dead. And so they are listed for the rest of time
Mhm.
as producers. So that's something you can get if you were ever like, yeah, I want to see this and I want to be known as that producer. You get that. You get a copy of the Blu-ray when you do that. Yeah, you'll see the Kickstarter. I just want people to think of it as, if you are willing to give to a fan-made film, I think of our movie as the same way that you would that. If you want to
Yeah.
see like Never Hike Alone, you want to see the best Jason Voorhees movie, or a fan made Batman, or Nightmare on Elm Street. That's this. Like,
Sure.
but this is original. Like, so help make this happen. Because again, very small budget. If we sell 100 Blu-rays, the special edition limited Blu-ray that is like All Your Friends Are Dead is only going to be offered through Kickstarter. It's a limited special run. It'll have behind the scenes and a commentary that is only for this release. If we sell 100 of those or 150 of those at $100, we made our budget.
Yeah.
That's the 15,000. We've made our goal. And
Sure.
so you're getting something that's exclusive, and you're making the movie.
Yeah.
You physically hold the thing that you just contributed to.
Sure. And I also think for anyone who's wanting to get into making movies, be it their own micro budget films or their own career starting off, however, why not help a fellow micro budget movie maker like yourself by contributing to all this? Because if nothing else, they could contribute and contact you, and you would reply back and just sort of say, "Look,
100%. I will answer all my social medias.
And
And
like,
like,
it's all experience, you know."
yeah. Well, and like we mentioned on the I keep on referring to this and it's a blur. On All Your Friends Are Dead Blu-ray, the commentary track is with me and Nick Hines. So it got picked up by a distributor, by SRS Cinemas for North America. And SRS Cinemas, that Blu-ray that's being put out has a different commentary. It's not Nick Hines and I, it's me and
Right.
the two other producers.
Right.
So that's why the Kickstarter one is special edition.
Sure.
That's the only
Sure.
place you get that commentary. But in that commentary, like exactly what you're just saying, we tell you how we made the movie. And we
Yeah.
made All Your Friends Are Dead for $5,959. We tell you how we made that incredibly low micro budget movie. So you're almost getting, it's not like the best, but with the behind the scenes, the commentary, you're getting a workshop and a tutorial on how to make an incredibly low budget movie. So you might be spending $100 to get the Blu-ray, but you're getting the movie, and
Yeah.
you're getting a class on this is how we did it.
Yeah. And for $100, that's pretty good. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not a bad class. Um, just before we do wrap this up, because I know you've got to go, you've got other stuff to do. Again, when this is nearer the time when you're launching, when we put it up, when everyone's watching this now, what's the easiest way to get involved with this, to find out about it? Obviously, you can follow you on social media if you want to shout out your social media accounts, but there is a Kickstarter page for this as well, which I will put the link up.
Yeah, click the link if you want to contact me about anything, if anybody has any questions. Another way you can give, you'll see in the perks for Kickstarter, you can get killed in the movie, which we offered last time. And it was, if you want to watch it, it's the mid-credit sequence of All Your Friends Are Dead. It was a podcasting couple that came down to Kentucky, and it's probably one of my favorite scenes in All Your Friends Are Dead, and it's a mid-credit sequence. You can get killed in open house as well. Follow me on @Ricky Glore. That's Facebook, Twitter. It's @GLORERICKY on Instagram. Yeah, click the Kickstarter link, and any questions you have, you can always email me at ricky.glore@gmail.com. I don't care that my email's out there. It's wherever you want to find it. And even if you don't want to contribute, or you don't have the funds, which I completely understand, share it. Spread the word. It's
Yeah.
like the old Mystery Science Theater 3000. Keep sharing the tapes. Like,
Yeah.
keep sharing the links. Like, the more people that it gets in front of, if you share it for 50 people, maybe 5 are only interested, but that's the 5 that we're making the movie for.
100%. I've always said this before. Whenever I've tried to help people with crowdfunders, when I've done my own crowdfunders in the past, you can't spare $10, £10. Fine, that's a legitimate thing, but you can post it 3 times. You can put it on your Facebook, your Instagram, Twitter, blah blah blah. Yeah, just tell everyone about it, because why wouldn't you? It's free. I think this project sounds amazing. I think it's really, really cool. I think it sounds funny. It sounds different. Sounds unique. I want to support this. I would happily have you back, and we can chat to you after it's gone live if you want. When you're several weeks in, we could do another one just to see how things are going. We could sort of do 5 things you hate about crowdfunders or something like that.
That I have to do them is number one.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think there's tons of stuff we could do for this.
Not this interviews, talking, could do all day. The throwing to the wolves of the void of the internet and crowdfunding, not knowing how anyone's going to see it, if anyone's going to see it, if anyone's going to contribute. That's a hardship. Like, we have this movie, the 4 leads are cast. We have our special effects person. We have our costume person. We have the music. We have the shooting schedule. We have the primary location. Like, we have a shooting schedule. This movie is scheduled to happen. If we don't get our budget, that's a lot of things that.
If assuming that you're going to get a budget, of course you're going to. When are you planning to wrap? What sort of time scale are we looking at?
The end of July, beginning of August, we should have everything, all the primary filming done, and then we'll probably have a couple pickup days after that. And then I project having the film edited and probably a good rough cut by January 2024. And then we'll all see from there what its life is going to be. Worst case, All Your Friends Are Dead had a good festival run. Oddly, in Europe, All Your Friends Are Dead played really, really well at festivals because there wasn't this weird or hard. Audiences didn't have in Europe have a hard time of delineating between horror and comedy.
Yeah,
it was easier for them to swallow. Where in the States, a lot of festivals, horror specific festivals, were like, well, it's not horror, it's more comedy. But then comedy festivals are like, well, it's more horror than it is comedy. And in Europe, they're just like, we get it. We like it.
Yeah.
It's dark humor. Like, this is peanut butter and chocolate. This is Reese's Cups. Like, we dig it. And I just think that's very interesting. So hopefully with Open House, a plan of Nick and I's is we might 4-wall it. Depending what things look like after the movie's made, is we might take it out on our own and book some independent theater houses and do some Q&As and take it around ourselves so we can see it with an audience.
You know what? I think that would be brilliant, because that is indie filmmaking. Do you know what I mean?
Do the grassroots, do the Kevin Smith kind of thing of be there with the people, and so they can get a sense of us. They know the movie. Maybe it's like a midnight showing thing in some cities, like a Rocky Horror. Maybe it develops a cult following that way. That's where we're at right now. But right now, we're just fingers crossed that we get to make this weird little thing that we want to, and hopefully this is just the beginning.
Yeah, you will totally do it, because you've got too much passion, too much enthusiasm, too much invested not to. Do you know what I mean? It will all come out, and I'm gonna help in any small, tiny little way that I possibly can.
Just doing this, Tom, is huge. So thank you.
No problem. No, thank you, Ricky. Yeah, I'm gonna say basically, let's wrap it up there, and let's speak in the near future. I'm gonna post the hell out of this, and I can't wait to see it.
It's awesome. Thank you.
It's gonna be awesome. Right. Thank you very much, Ricky. Thank you.